because of COVID-19 exposure. That means wide receivers coach Robert Prince is serving as the head coach today against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So let's bring in my co-host Anthony Bellino down at the Henry Ford Health System update desk. Anthony, sure have lots to talk about today, but first of all, Merry Christmas to you. I hope you had a wonderful holiday yesterday.
Merry Christmas to you too, and happy holidays to all of our viewers out there. And Tori, plenty to get to in today's ball game as the Michigan alum Tom Brady and company make their way.
Had to mention that.
I had to throw it in there nice and early right off the top. But very excited for today's ball game on a Saturday, which many people may not know this, but Tom Brady historically 8-0 on Saturdays throughout his NFL career. So good opportunity to throw a little hash mark in the loss column for him a little bit later on this afternoon.
That's a good stat, Anthony. I like it. Came prepared for the pregame show. Well, the players came prepared this morning for this matchup. They arrived to Ford Field a little bit earlier today. We got a little bit of a white Christmas yesterday, little snowfall there in the background. Players rolling in for this matchup with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Here's one thing to note as well, Anthony. With a win today, the Bucs could clinch a playoff spot for the first time since 2007. So there is a lot on the line for the Bucs.
A lot on the line for the Buccaneers. All things considered, they lose out on the NFC South Championship with the New Orleans Saints picking up their victory yesterday. So a very, very important game today for Tampa Bay. And did you know that they're where they're at right now, trying to break this playoff drought that they've been on, is the second longest currently in the NFL. Haven't been to the show since 2007. Obviously, the roster's changed a lot this past offseason to lead the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to where they're at today. But expect a very motivated Tom Brady and company this afternoon.
Absolutely. Well, let's check out our inactives presented by Henry Ford Health System. You're taking a look at the Buccaneers inactives right there. But let's take a look now at the Lions inactives. Obviously, another week out for Kenny Golladay. That is unfortunate. Another week out for Frank Ragnow as well. You know, we weren't sure what would happen there with Frank, but he is on the inactive list, so he will not be playing today. That means, they will have someone else at center. Last week it was Joe Dahl. Expect it will be Joe Dahl again this week. Tyrell Crosby will not be at that right tackle position. Probably, could see some of, Vitae back in there today. We'll see what happens here with the Lions inactives or with the Lions offensive line, as they have had so many injuries. Anthony, what sticks out to you on that list?
Well, obviously, it's the center quarterback exchange, right? We talked about it last week when we weren't really sure what was going to happen with Frank, and I thought that Joe Dahl, Matthew Stafford did a good job in last week's game. And I think that this game, because of the changeover in the coaching staff due to the COVID-19 protocols, this is a game right now when you look at Frank Ragnow not being on the offensive line, being able to call out the protections. A lot more rides on Matthew Stafford from that perspective, but also from anybody who's in a leadership type of role, any sort of veteran. Because of all this changeover within the coaching staff, you're going to have to rely on a lot of your veteran players to be able to make in-game adjustments basically on the fly. And I think that that's where you have to kind of rely on experience in today's ball game and look for Matthew Stafford. Obviously, there's a lot on his plate playing quarterback already, but even more. And then on the defensive side of the football as well, with Corey Undlin not being available for today's game, the defensive coordinator, you're going to be looking at guys along the defensive line, at the linebacking position, Duron Harmon at the safety position, basically acting like a quarterback, trying to make adjustments play by play. So that's something I think we want to keep our eyes on today.
Absolutely. Well, before we dive too much into this game, let's take a look around the league with our BetMGM out of town preview. Like you mentioned, Anthony, a game yesterday between Lions' divisional opponent there, the Minnesota Vikings, and the New Orleans Saints. The Saints came away with that one, like you said, clinching the NFC South. So, Anthony, what sticks out to you for the slate of weekend games? Obviously, just 3 here today on Saturday, but then, we got some going on this weekend.
Well, holy mackerel, what happened to the Vikings defense? My goodness, 52 points you surrender? Oh, wow, that's a lot of points in an NFL football game. I think if, the top row there has our games for today with the 4:30 kick between Arizona and San Francisco, which is basically a home game for both teams since San Francisco had to relocate.
I know, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, down to Glendale to play their home games because of the COVID related, I don't know, what it'd be a law?
Restrictions, I guess, in Santa Clara.
Great way to put it. The Miami Dolphins on the road fighting for their playoff lives against the Las Vegas Raiders. So that's a big game in Vegas. I think you look at the Chicago Bears. Now Tampa Bay can get some help today if Chicago is to lose tomorrow against Jacksonville, or if Tampa Bay obviously wins today. And then I think that you have a couple of interesting matchups with the Browns and the Jets. The Jets, they have a win this season. Who'd have thunk it, right? But the Cleveland Browns making their push for the AFC North. because if you look just to the right there, you see the Colts and the Steelers. That is a massive game for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have lost now 3 games in a row. Indianapolis Colts coming to town. A lot of questions surrounding that Pittsburgh Steelers team. And then the big one in the evening between the Bills and the Patriots. Very much looking forward to that football game as well.
Well, speaking of that game that comes after the Lions game between the Cardinals and the 49ers, I picked a couple of guys from both those teams in my fantasy picks last week, so let's take a look back at how those shook out. Anthony, they shook out pretty well for me.
I'm thinking Lamar Jackson, he gets 4 touchdowns. I'm on a roll. Well, you match that with 4 touchdowns for yourself and Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
Oh, and you almost doubled up on the yards. And then I get a touchdown at wide receiver. You're going to get 20 more yards, and you're going to get a touchdown. I feel good about my running back, Alvin Kamara. He gets a touchdown. Of course, you match that with a touchdown of your own and 30 more rushing yards. So I just can't win. Anytime I think I'm feeling good, it all just crumbles.
This was a pretty close matchup, but this week the Jess Trophy goes to me again, Anthony. You got it last week, though.
It's good. It's good. Keep. We want to talk about winning. We want to manifest winning. That's what we're trying to do, and you're doing a whole lot of it this season, Tori.
Well, Anthony, I love competing with you every week on our fantasy picks. We'll get to our picks for today a little bit later in today's show. But for now, we want to talk about something that's so important to our hearts. Our military is so important to honor this season and every season. So last week, we had a chance to sit down with our Kroger hometown hero, Dennis Hill, and hear his story of service. Let's take a look. This week, our Kroger hometown hero is Dennis Hill. Dennis, thank you so much for joining us. And first of all, thank you for your service.
Well, I want to thank you and the Lions and everything for being honored here. And I want to thank my son for nominating me. I didn't know that was happened until I got the phone call the other day. So that was a nice surprise. I was really, really touched.
Awesome. Well, we want to get to know you and your time in the military. I understand you were drafted into the U.S. Army in 1969. Tell me how that journey started for you and what that was like.
Well, I grew up in a small town up in the thumb called Bad Axe, and had been going to a junior college, and at that time I didn't enroll for the fall classes at the junior college, and so the draft board, once they find out that information, they just pretty much snab you and take you down for a physical, and I didn't have any shin splints or anything like that, so I was just inducted at that time and went down to Fort Knox in Kentucky for basic training. And then after finishing that was about 8 weeks, and after finishing that I went down to Fort Polk in Louisiana, which you got a little bit more infantry training because I was being trained to be a rifleman. As it turned out I was, and went to Vietnam.
Well, you also received the Purple Heart, which is really a huge honor. What was that experience like for you, and what did that mean to you?
I was sent to Vietnam in spring of 1970 and assigned to a infantry brigade up in the northern part of Vietnam. That particular day, our unit walked into the middle of a North Vietnamese base camp. My job was just to watch nobody comes up behind us. And so I'm there, and all of a sudden I see someone in the bush over there and some movement. And I didn't know I was shot. I've never been shot, so I didn't know what it felt like to be shot. They always say your life flashes before your eyes. Well, it does. There were other people that were wounded that day. And for some reason, I didn't have a lot of bleeding. Wasn't a lot of pain. But there were other soldiers around me that were. We were obviously screaming. They had different types of wounds. And so at the area we were in was like brush and forest and trees and stuff like that. Well, in order to get somebody medevaced out, they have to clear an area, so the helicopter can get in. Well, they were evacuating everybody one at a time. You can only get one injured person on a small helicopter. And so at that time, I just said, well, take those guys first. I'm not in pain for some reason, and I'm just numb. And so as a result of that, when I got back to the States, I found out that they awarded me the Bronze Star. That's the story of how I became recipient of the Purple Heart and the Bronze Star.
Well, we so appreciate your bravery in sharing that. And I think, like you were saying, not a lot of people have heard those stories, but I think it is important to tell them, to be able to appreciate what you guys went through. Mm-hmm. What was it like being able to come home to your family? I know the rehab process was long, but what was it like being able to come back to them?
Yeah, I was medevaced. Initially, I went to Japan. I was there for a couple of weeks, and then they flew us back to Walter Reed in Washington, D.C. And I was a patient there for 6 months. The result of the injuries, I had lost use of this arm, and it affected my voice and vocal cords. And in fact, for the first 2 months, I couldn't swallow because the muscles that you use to swallow were paralyzed. So I was being fed through my feeding tube through my nose. So one day they brought up a meal, and I chewed and chewed, and I swallowed it. Well, that weekend, I gained 12 pounds. So I would have a meal brought up to my room, and I'd go down to the cafeteria. I'd have 2 breakfasts, 2 lunches, 2 dinners. So I made it for a lost time.
Well, we're proud that you're here with us to be our Kroger hometown hero.
Well, I'm honored, yeah.
I know your son nominated you.
Yes,
How did you find out about that, and what did that mean to you?
Well, he called me on the phone, obviously, and he wanted it to be a surprise. He was going to wait and tell me later on, but he can't keep a secret and keep it quiet. He can't. So he just told me over the phone, and he's telling me all these things that are going to happen. So, oh my gosh. I don't know if I was more excited for me or for my grandson. he loves the Lions, so he's enjoying all this.
What does it mean to be able to share this experience with your son and your grandson, have them here at Ford Field, be able to go behind the scenes and have this honor? Yep,
I'm truly honored, and love my son for nominating me, and glad that my grandson can also participate in it, so it's great.
Well, thank you so much for being our Kroger hometown hero this week. We appreciate your service more than we can express, and we congratulate you on being that hometown hero.
Well, I want to thank you very much, so appreciate it.
We want to thank Dennis again for his service, and we look forward to having him back at the stadium soon. You can nominate your hometown heroes today at DetroitLions.com/hometownheroes.
We'd like to thank the Comerica Rise program for being today's presenting partner of the Detroit Lions pregame show. Fans, a reminder, make sure you tune into Fox 2 each Sunday at 10 a.m. for Lions Game Day Live, and turn on Fox 2 tomorrow night at 11 p.m. to watch Sportsworks and Lions Game Night for complete recap and interviews from today's game. If you're watching from the Detroit Lions broadcast region, make sure you tune into NFL Network to catch today's game, which kicks off at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And with the holiday season now underway, the Lions and Pepsi have something special for you, the fans. Grab your phone and open up the Detroit Lions mobile app and check out the new virtual holiday filters brought to you by our friends at Pepsi. You can even try on the Kenny Galladay custom holiday sweater. Make sure to share these with your friends and your family as well. And we want to see your game face today. You have the chance to be featured on today's show by posting using the hashtag DTEGameface and showing us your game day energy. Don't miss out on your opportunity to be a part of the Lions game day. Just post right now using the hashtag DTEGameface.
BetMGM, an official partner of the Detroit Lions, is coming soon to Michigan. But you can sign up early and get $100 in free sports bets and $100 in free casino bets with bonus code LIONS. Be ready for the action the moment BetMGM goes live. Download the app or go to BetMGM.com to get a total of $200 in free bets with bonus code LIONS. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help. Excludes Michigan disassociated persons.
Businesses and the communities they serve are all experiencing the same set of challenges brought on by COVID-19. We were joined earlier this week by Comerica Bank's Chief Experience Officer, Jim Weber, to hear more about how their RISE program is aiding in the recovery.
We're so honored to have Comerica Bank as our presenting sponsor for this week's game, and we want to highlight a really cool initiative that they have started. So we're bringing in Jim Weber, the Chief Experience Officer of Comerica Bank. Jim, thank you so much for joining us to talk about the Comerica Bank RISE program.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Jim, this has been such a hard year for so many people. So what have you guys at Comerica Bank done to help Michigan-based businesses during this hard time?
As a bank, I think, from our standpoint, our starting point is always, how can we do everything possible to show some tangible support for, small business customers and also for the communities. In this case, we knew for, small business customers and also for the communities. In this case, we knew we needed to go beyond something that was just, a really, nice, thoughtful message or television commercial, if you will, and really go beyond that and get into how do we make a real difference? What are we going to do to help small businesses, to help communities? The framework that we have right now, Comerica, is leave no stone unturned. What are the ideas that we haven't thought of that that might benefit a small business, especially in these times? So RISE is the answer to that. And RISE is an acronym, and it stands for resources, ideas, support, and engagement. And the premise of it is for us to reach out into the communities especially through a lot of our partner organizations, to find ways to funnel financial as well as volunteer support to different communities and organizations, help them with both the funding and the manpower, the boots on the ground, to keep things moving. We took a look at what we had, and with the Lions, for instance, we've got a whole different set of programs. We've had the Small Business of the Game program for years with you guys, but we were looking for other ways to maybe pass on some of the assets we have, pass on some of the exposure that we get through our different relationships.
I love it. I've been a part of those Comerica Bank small business packages that we have done to highlight different businesses around the state. Why is it that specifically small business have become so important to you guys to help keep afloat during this time?
I think you see it walking down, any street in any neighborhood, across all of, Michigan, quite frankly, across the whole country. And, everybody sees the store closures, everybody sees the challenges that COVID has created. And, when you think about what is the lifeblood of the American economy, larger companies, not that they're not in pain, but they have deeper pockets. They have probably a little more capability to survive times like this. Small businesses don't, and especially when you think about retailers or service industries that are supporting other small businesses. You go down the line and you realize that the ripple effect is tremendous. One of the thoughts that crosses our mind is the best thing we can do for our customers is to get them customers. And then, that's sort of this virtuous circle that you hope to create.
What is it like for you to talk to a small business or hear from a small business who has received help from the RISE program and it has really changed their year in 2020? What is that like for you guys?
It's always gratifying. Like I said earlier, part of what we do, from an experience and marketing standpoint is really trying to tell the story of Comerica and making sure people understand who we are. But in the end, the best stories that are told are the stories our customers tell us. In this case, it's the positive energy has I think they've really appreciated the intent of it. We see what we're doing now as a starting point.
As the presenting sponsor for this week's game, you guys could have chosen to highlight any part of your business, but you chose to highlight this RISE program and give a bigger voice to those small businesses. Why was that so important to you today to partner with the Lions and use that leverage? We have a long history with the team, and hopefully one that's been mutually beneficial on both sides. But when we think about the reach that the Lions bring to the community, how and how enthusiastic the support is across Southeast Michigan, we felt it was the absolute perfect way to deliver that message. We are first and foremost, we have been and have been recognized as a leader in business. When you think about the various industries that are based in Southeast Michigan, we have a long history with a lot of the largest and most successful of those industries. And so that's part of it. That's our DNA, and we really know that business well. We understand small business, I believe, in a way that few other banks do. And it's that insight and understanding and really kind of knowing what people need and when and how to meet those needs that we pride ourselves on. So, we want to use the microphone that we have by virtue of our relationship with you and blast that message out for all to hear. Well, Jim, thank you so much for what you guys are doing at Comerica for small businesses and for the Lions. We appreciate you.
And we appreciate the Lions as well. Thank you so much.
We love all that Comerica Bank's RISE program is doing here in our community, and we thank them for being our partner here on our pregame show presented by the Comerica Bank RISE program. I'm Tori Petry, and now I've got Tim Twentyman down at the Henry Ford Health System update desk to talk a little bit more about this Week 16 matchup between the Lions and the Bucks. First off, Tim, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Happy to have you here with us on this day after Christmas.
Right back to you, Tor.
Well, it should be an interesting one today because the Lions are missing quite a few people, whether it be players who are injured, but also coaches who have been exposed to COVID-19 and are under quarantine. Tim, what do you make of the coaching lineup today against the Bucks?
It's been a busy week in Allen Park. Let's just say that for all involved, really. And so, obviously with Darrell Bevel being a close contact, he's not here today. So you look, Robert Prince is going to take over as the head coaching duties, and then I don't think much is going to change in terms of the offensive play calling with Sean Ryan, the quarterback's coach. He and Matthew have worked hand in hand this whole year, and look, Matthew's a 12-year vet, right? So he can get in and out of plays as he sees fit. You just need somebody to get those different personnel packages squared away and into the game, and so I don't think much will change offensively, and then defensively it'll be interesting with Evan Rothstein. A guy that was really Matt Patricia's kind of right-hand man for the time that he was here. He's one of their longest tenured assistant coaches, and he knows this defense really well, right? He's one of the smartest guys on the staff. He does kind of the special projects, looks into all the little kind of idiosyncrasies from film, and he's going to call plays. And so I think that one will be a little bit interesting. He's never had that kind of role before. He obviously is very knowledgeable about this defense, this personnel, but it's a little different when you're in the fire and you're calling and you're squaring up against Tom Brady in this explosive offense. So that one I think will be the most interesting, the one I'll keep an eye on the closest.
Absolutely. Good stuff, Tim, on this coaching staff for people who may not be familiar with all the assistants that will be taking over for the Lions today. But before we talk more about this matchup today, I did want to touch on that guy and a couple of others who made their very first Pro Bowl this week. Punter Jack Fox, who you're seeing on your screen, center Frank Ragnow, and tight end TJ Hawkinson all made the 2021 Pro Bowl. Well-deserved for all three of these players, Tim.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, you look at a guy like Jack Fox, right? He was battling Aaron Sapos in training camp, and I think the last week we didn't even know who was going to win that job.
Yeah.
And so for Jack to win that, what a great job for him, and then to have the kind of season he's having. He's top 3 in the league in gross punting, top 3 in net punting, and the net punting is the key one there, right? Because that takes 11 guys. It starts with that guy right there booting it high, and he's got the highest hang time in the league, but it takes all 11 guys to cover those kicks, and so I think we talked to Jack this week, and he was most proud of that one because it involves his teammates the most, and so I thought that was a class act by him as well. And then look, I've been on the Hawkinson train all season long. I predicted he'd lead this team in touchdown catches before. I thought he'd have a great year.
The Pro Bowl voters agreed with you.
Yeah, so that one doesn't surprise me too much. And then Ragnow, obviously, he's become one of the great young centers in this league. Unfortunately, he's inactive today because of that throat injury. He's going to miss his second straight game. But I think when you talk about the new GM coming in and the new head coach, I think you look at some of those pieces like a Hawkinson, right? You've got your center of the future. You've got a left tackle under contract. We saw Swift a moment ago, and you can see him right in the back there, getting some love from some Tampa Bay guys, but he's a nice little piece there to build on. So
sure.
Offensively, I think the future's bright. They'll have to obviously figure out what to do with that guy right there. He's under contract for a couple more years, but he's bright. They'll have to obviously figure out what to do with that guy right there. He's under contract for a couple more years, but what's his future beyond that, and that'll be determined by the new GM and the new head coach. But whoever comes in, he's got some pieces on offense that you have to be pretty excited about.
Most definitely. The Lions have a couple of pieces that will be very important on offense today against these Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I think number 9 is at the top of that list, considering the fact that they have a guy who will be the head coach today, who has not done this before for the Detroit Lions, and guy who is calling plays who hasn't done it before for the Detroit Lions either. So I feel like Matthew Stafford is going to be very important in this matchup with the Bucs.
Yeah, Tori, you see the statistics there. The 9 interceptions, that's the important one for me in this one. Is don't make the key turnover. Don't put your defense in a bad position, because this is a Tampa Bay offense that's really explosive. But when you look at Tampa Bay's defense, it's going to be interesting. Matthew obviously is still dealing with the ribs, and this isn't a Tennessee defense that comes in with 14 sacks like we saw last week, and the Lions were able to keep Matthew pretty clean. This is a Tampa Bay team that comes in 4th in the league. They got 43 sacks, right?
Oh,
they're only they're one of 3 teams that have at least 3 players with 8+ sacks, right? And then on top of that, they blitz about 40% of the time, which is top 5 in the league too. So they've got guys that can generate pressure up front, but then they create their own pressure as well. And so those guys up front are going to have to be really, really good. And, we talked about they're not going to have Ragnow. They are going to have Taylor Decker, who is questionable. That's obviously key. But they don't have Tyrell Crosby, their swing tackle, either. So, to me, this is about Matthew, being protected first and foremost. And then, this Tampa Bay defense is number 1 in the league against the run, but they're 25th in passing. So I think this is a key game for number 9 right there. He's warming up, and I think he's going to have to make some plays down the field, and this passing game is going to have to be really good. That's where you make your hay against this Tampa Bay defense. It's not running the football. They're really, really good stopping the run. They've got one of the best front sevens, I believe, in football on defense. And so it's going to be on number 9 in this passing game, I think, to generate the offense and stick with this high-powered Tampa Bay offense.
How important is it for this coaching staff that's stepping in to a surprise role really this week to have a guy like number 9 under center who can, help them out with what he's seeing on the field, a guy who's experienced, a veteran, and knows a lot about the game of football?
Yeah, imagine if this was a rookie quarterback, right? Or a second-year quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Or a guy first year in the system. And so I think that's what makes, weeks like this a little bit easier, is that you have a guy like Matthew Stafford back there. Look, Tampa Bay is not going to throw anything at Matthew Stafford he hasn't seen in 12 years, right? And so it's just deciphering it, right? Going through your reads and making the right, the right throw and the right play. And I think it's on Sean Ryan and those guys to get the different personnel packages in, make sure that part of it's good. But you've got a guy in Matthew who's very comfortable in this offense. He can step up to the line of scrimmage and look, if that play comes in late, right, he can get them in and out of plays, and he's been here long enough where I think it makes that whole process with what the Lions dealt with this week much easier to deal with when you've got a guy like number 9 who's been doing it at a high level for 12 years.
Well, Tim, you talk about how the key today is that passing game. We're getting a look at some of the wide receivers warming up down on the field. Mohamed Sanu is one of them. You guys saw those little Christmas cleats out there. Those were Sanu's. Love that little Christmas theme from him today. He's been key since joining this team mid-season here. Tim, what role do you think he plays against the Bucs today?
He plays a big one, and we've seen that the last 3 weeks, right? Each of the last 3 games, he's had an explosive play. And so, I think he's just becoming more and more comfortable. Like we talk about with Matthew being a veteran guy, like Sanu's a veteran guy as well, and he's really crafty in his route running. He can find the open spots and the gaps. He's terrific, against the zone just because of that veteran savviness. And he and Matthew Stafford have built kind of a rapport here over the last month. And so, obviously it starts with Marv. And his explosiveness outside, and then obviously TJ in the middle. But I think Sanu has kind of become that third guy in the passing game that Matthew will look to, and he's had some key catches, the last few weeks. Those cleats are pretty tight, though.
I know.
That was a nice little shot there.
You know what they say.
Kudos to the cameraman there. The close-up
right?
shot. I don't know who that was, Neil or Joe, or who it was, but that's good stuff there.
We got a great crew that works with us on the pregame show. You know what they say, Tim? Look good, feel good, play good. And
Yeah.
I'm feeling that for Sanu today because those cleats sure do look good.
Well, hey, look what it did to Alvin Kamara last night, right? He had the little holiday Christmas cleats on, and all he did was rush for 6 touchdowns. Thank goodness I wasn't playing him in my fantasy championship. Too bad I didn't have him, but hopefully there's some Christmas magic with the cleats afoot here.
I like it. Great point by you, Tim. Another guy we've seen warming up down there is DeAndre Swift. I know you don't feel like this game is going to be won in the run game, so what role do you feel like he plays in this matchup with the Bucs?
Well, I think this will be an interesting one for DeAndre Swift, the pass catcher. And we've seen him be a big part of the passing game really all year long. I think only Alvin Kamara has more games where he's been targeted 4+ times. DeAndre's been targeted 4+ times in 10 games this year. That's second most in the NFL. And so he's been a big part. But like I talked about off the top, it's just really tough to gain yards against this front seven of Tampa. I think where Swift can really make his hay is in the screen game, in the short passing game, getting out in one-on-one situations against this is a Tampa Bay linebacker group that is very fast, but they're a little bit undersized, and so at least at some spots. And so, I think Swift has proven he can be a powerful runner and an elusive one. And so I look for DeAndre really to have his biggest impact in this game in the passing game. Being a receiver, being a mismatch kind of guy. Now you're still going to run the ball. You still have to have some kind of balance, or Matthew might not get through this game with how good they are as a pass rusher.
Right.
So you still got to pound it, and you still got to do that. But don't be surprised, Tor, if Swift makes a big play today in the passing game, whether that's a big screen, whether they find the matchup. He gets, one of those hook routes out in the flat and is able to wheel route and beat a lineman linebacker. I have a sneaky feeling there's a big play in there for Swift.
Okay, all right,
in the
I
passing
like
game
it.
today.
Good stuff, Tim. You know, we've seen Danny Amendola out there. He's been kind of a security blanket for Matthew Stafford this season. Saw him give another Bucs player a hug out there. I'm just waiting for him to find number 12, Tom Brady. He's a guy he knows well. Will be reunited with his former Patriots teammate. Couple of former Patriots. We'll get to see an old friend in Tom Brady today.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, talk about a guy who's doing it for a long time, right? 43-year-old Tom Brady still looks great. Look what he did last week, right? They fall behind, and all he does is throw for 390 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the crazy thing about Brady is that, you know, the resurgence of the deep passing game, that's Bruce Arians' obviously staple of his offenses, but this is a team that throws the ball deep a lot. And so Detroit's defense has got to be ready for that. And that guy knows better than anybody.
Yeah.
He was on a few receiving ends of some of those big plays. And
yeah.
I think you're right. I think you said it best when you said security blanket. I think that's what a guy like Amendola is for Matthew Stafford. We've seen all year he's made some key catches on third down. He's that guy that kind of just gets over the middle, right? He's been doing it a long time. We talked about Sanu and just his savviness in terms of getting open and finding open spots. Danny does it too. He's been doing it for a long time. The one I think that's interesting to me is that bottom one, no touchdowns. He's got enough targets, he's got enough catches that they haven't been able to find him and get him into the end zone. I think these last 2 weeks he'd like to get at least one in there. You don't want to go into an offseason with a goose egg in terms of getting into the end zone.
Well, that right there that you guys just saw was a hug with the play caller for today, quarterbacks coach Sean Ryan. For those of you who are having a little bit of a hard time keeping up with all of the coaching changes this season.
Don't worry, I had to check it too on the website too, just to make sure everybody's title was. So
right,
we're with you.
Yeah, exactly. We certainly are. But that was Sean Ryan, so that's who you can expect to be calling the plays today against this Tampa Bay Bucs defense. Tim, before we move on from the Lions offense, there's one more position group that I do want to touch on. That's the offensive line. 2 key guys there on the inactive list. Frank Ragnow not playing today. Tyrell Crosby not playing today. How do you think that offensive line shakes out against the Bucs?
Well, I think the good thing is that they've had experience with this all year long, right? They've battled some injuries, they've moved some guys in and out, and a lot of guys have played, and that bodes well for these types of situations, right? You're not throwing a guy in there that hasn't seen a lot of football. All these guys have played a lot of football into Week 16, so that's the positive. Now, the negative is obviously, we talked about it off the top, right? Frank Ragnow's a Pro Bowl player. Well, he's in the Pro Bowl for a reason, because he's a pretty darn good player, and so you don't have him. Now you've got a guy like Ndamukong Suh on the other side, right?
Yep.
And I'm sure he'd like to get to number 9 right there and give him a little hello, remember me. And then you've got, like I said, you got 3 different guys with 8 sacks on this team. And so they get after the passer, and they do a really good job of it. And so it's going to be important, for those hot guys to be on alert, and it's going to be important for a Joe Dahl and a Big V to kind of step in and play really, really well. I thought it was key that Taylor Decker has been dealing with a groin injury all week long. It limited him in practice. The fact that he's active today, I think, is a big key for those guys up front. You got your left tackle, and that's good for Matthew Stafford, but those other guys are just going to have to kind of step in and play really well. This is one of the bigger tests. We talked about it with Washington a few weeks back and all the first-round draft picks they have. I put Tampa Bay right there just in terms of talent on their defensive line, and so this is going to be a good test for all those guys up front. They're going to have to step up and play well today.
All right, Tim, good stuff on the offense, but we've still got to talk defense, and we will just after this quick break. We'll be right back.
These past few months have been trying, but despite the setbacks, uncertainty, and challenges, one thing is certain: Michigan will recover, and Comerica is here to help our communities rise. Through our COVID-19 relief program, Comerica has donated millions to COVID-19 testing, personal protection equipment, crucial supplies, food banks, and small businesses, and we're just getting started. To learn more, visit comerica.com/rise.
All for leaving opponents in our dust, linebackers and cancer alike. All for believing in ourselves, even when victory seems impossible. All for working tirelessly as one for the good of all around us. As the official healthcare provider of the Detroit Lions, Henry Ford Health System is proud to keep our greatest athletes and their biggest fans at their best. Henry Ford Health System, all for you.
Welcome back into the Detroit Lions pregame show presented by the Comerica Bank Rise program. I'm Tori Petry. That's Tim Twentyman down at the Henry Ford Health System update desk. We've been talking a little bit about that offense out there warming up on the field, and now it is time to talk defense. Tim, a notable name on the inactives list we didn't talk too much about earlier in the show, and that's Jamie Collins. He won't be able to go against the Bucs today. What kind of impact does that have on this defense?
Well, it's a big impact. You know, he's the guy that kind of runs everything in the middle, and he's your leading tackler, right? 101 tackles on the year, that leads the team. He's also forced 3 fumbles, that leads the team, and his 6 tackles for loss is second behind Romeo Okwara. So, you know, I think it's that big play impact. I think he's Detroit's best cover linebacker, and so you miss him in that aspect as well. And so, look, this has been, you know, this hasn't been a very good Lions defense. We can all admit that. But, you know, he's been one of the guys that's been a playmaker for them. And so to lose a guy like that, I think it certainly will have an impact today.
Well, you know who has had an impact this season for this defense is Romeo Okwara. He really has been the most productive guy along that Lions defensive line. How important is it for him today to get Tom Brady a little shaken up in the pocket?
It's really important, you know, and Romeo's been really, really good, I think, is on third down. And this is a Lions team that doesn't generate a lot of pressure as a team. But interesting tidnote I came across this week is Romeo Okwara leads all defensive linemen in pressures on third down, 27. And so it's interesting, Shaquille Barrett's number 2, who's on the other side today. And so he's been, look, you look at the play he made last week, right? He tries to get cut block, he hurdles it, gets a safety, right? He's just athletic. He's their most consistent pass rusher all season long. They don't do it well as a team, but he's done it really, really well. And I really hope he gets to 10 sacks. He's sitting at 8 right now. I'd love to see him get to double-digit sacks. And that you can see right there, that defense is trying to hype itself up. And yeah. Romeo's right there. He's going to need to be really good, but I think just this whole team's going to have to play much better than they have, because this is a Bucs offense, Tori, that they'll throw the ball and they throw it down the field. They lead the league in deep pass attempts, and Tom's been hitting them as of the last month, 9 of 15 on those deep balls that travel 21-plus yards. And so they're going to take their shots. They got 3 guys that can get down the fields, and Evans and Brown and Godwin, and their tight ends are really, really good, and Tom's going to throw it down there. So it's up to Romeo Okwara and those guys up front, right? We always talk about the marriage between rush and coverage, and you know, the guys can't sit back there and cover for 4 or 5 seconds in the NFL. It just ain't gonna happen, especially against these guys. And so Romeo and company have to be really good. They got to find a way to generate some pressure, and they can't let Tom Brady sit back there because they'll pick them apart.
Yeah, they're playing one of the greats today, and like you said, he's been able to pass that ball downfield quite a bit this season. So who in the Lions secondary needs to step up in order to kind of limit Tom Brady?
Well, for me, it's the guy at the very back, Duron Harmon. You know, we saw he gave up a big play against Tennessee. We talked to him this week, and he's given up a couple the last few weeks. And like we just talked about, right, he's the last line of defense. And this is a Bucs defense that will throw the ball deep. Even if it's covered, Tori, they'll throw it deep. And so he's going to have to be one of those guys that's the last line of defense that can go up and make a play. You know, how about this defense generate a couple turnovers today, right?
Yeah.
How about they help this offense out a little bit? You know, Tom will throw some interceptions on those deep balls. He'll throw it up to guys expecting Evans and them to make a play. Well, how about you make a play, right? Help this team out a little bit. They need some more of those big-time plays on defense. And look, this is a new general manager, a new head coach coming in, and they're going to take a real close look at this defense. And this is a defense that needs playmakers. And so these last 2 weeks, I think it's important for a guy like Duron Harmon to show that he can, you know, be a playmaker back there. And it starts today because he's going to get a lot of work, you know, playing that deep safety part of the field.
Well, he's another guy who knows Tom Brady from his time in New England. Remember, everyone, that Duron Harmon was traded here in the middle of free agency. So that's something to note as well. He talked a little bit about that this week, his first experience meeting Tom Brady when he joined the Patriots. Yeah, I know a lot of the guys were able to share stories like that of Brady this week. But obviously, he's on the opposite sideline today, so they will not be friends between the lines as the Lions face off against the Bucs today. Tim, great stuff on the Lions and Bucs this week. We appreciate you as always.
Anytime.
All right, guys, for the 5th year in a row, the Detroit Lions have partnered with Comerica Bank to help highlight Michigan-based small businesses. So this week, we had the chance to visit and learn more about LJ Rolls Mechanical. Take a look. Our Comerica Bank small business of the game is Rolls Mechanical. We're here at their offices in Fenton, Michigan to find out how Comerica has helped get them rolling towards an even better future.
We are a mechanical contractor. We do commercial and industrial, sheet metal, heating, air conditioning, refrigeration, plumbing, controls, pretty much all of it.
What kind of businesses do you work with?
Pretty much about anybody in the commercial level, industrial level, institutional level, schools, big buildings, warehouses, hospitals, you name it.
Help us understand what a day in the life here at LJ Rolls Refrigeration looks like.
LJ Rolls can provide service for people that need it. If they're down with their heating, air conditioning, refrigeration needs, they can call in and we can have service people go out there. We can have people call us with their needs for a brand new building and do design build services for them from the ground up, from conception all the way to completion with mechanical needs of whether it's a warehouse, a refrigerated cold storage building. They can call here and we can work with them on everything, put it all in and then service it after and stay with them. We get calls on everything all day of all different kinds, and we can handle everything for any type of mechanical needs that people want when they call here.
So tell me how LJ Rolls was founded and how you've grown since then.
LJ Rolls started back in 1994 by myself. I went into business and decided to give it a try, and then because of the size of the work that we do, I took on a couple of men to help me, and we've built from there. The original gentleman that came to help work for me is still with me now, which is a wonderful thing. And I can say the first big job that we did, we still do the work for the people. So we have a lot of return customers that come back to us because of our work and our work ethic and honesty, and they like us, and we built a business on it.
Well, this is truly a family business as well. Your wife works here, your daughter works here.
Yes.
What does it mean to you to
Yes.
have your family working with
It's
you?
a wonderful thing. They are both heavily engaged in the company, love what they do. My daughter has been inspirational in building the service division and working with everybody, and it's terrific. It really is. We get along well, and we're just keeps going upward.
How has Comerica Bank helped you guys grow throughout the years?
Gosh, Comerica has been here from when I was small, when all the buildings around here that I've built and owned, all my loans go through there. My trucks, because we have right around 80 trucks on the road, all my loans are through Comerica with all of our truck loans. They've consolidated them to save us money. Our credit line, we're open with them, all our money. Everything we do centers around Comerica helping us and funding us and helping us build.
Well, it's clear from this office that you're a sports fan. So what does it mean to you to be selected as the Comerica Bank Small Business of the Game for the Lions game?
Oh, it's huge. We love the Lions. We love our Michigan football, Michigan State football, all the sports. Two of my daughters went through Michigan, so they still watch football and go to the games, and we go to the Lions games. And it's not Thanksgiving without watching the Lions either on TV or being at the game. So, you know, we are a true die-hard Lions fan, and pretty much everybody here is. So,
well, we are honored to have you guys as our small business of the game. Thank you for having us out.
oh, thank you for coming.
Thank you again to our friends at Comerica Bank for helping us honor LJ Rolls Mechanical. To learn more about the small business program, head to DetroitLions.com. We've reached this point in our pregame show presented by the Comerica Bank Rise program, where we bring in Mike O'Hara down at the Henry Ford Health System Update Desk to discuss a little bit about the opponent. Mike, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I hope you had a wonderful holiday yesterday.
I did, Tori. Same to you, same to everybody out there.
Thank you so much, Mike. Well, we've got a lot to talk about today as we preview the opponent, and there's no better place to start than TB12. What kind of threat is Tom Brady for the Detroit Lions today?
Threat to everybody, and especially the Detroit Lions, given what they're trying to play through today. Look,
yeah.
I think that a lot of the critics, myself and analysts, were wrong. We thought that what we saw from Tom Brady last year at the age of 42, the last 3, 4, or 5 games, we saw a quarterback declining, and we thought, okay, he's finally too old to play quarterback in the National Football League. wrong. At the age of 43, he's playing as well as he was at the age of 33. And you can look up the stats and all that. But look at this. He's got 32 touchdown passes, which is his high since 2015 when he had 36. And he's a little higher in the interceptions with 11, but I think that's some of it, still building familiarity with the offense and a new coaching staff and all that with Bruce Arians. But really, what you look at what he did last week, and I've got the notes down here. Look, they were down 17-0 to the Atlanta Falcons at halftime. And look, the Falcons are not any great team. They're a team the Detroit Lions, came from behind to beat, weeks ago. But in the second half, Brady threw for 320 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and they absolutely decimated the Falcons to win 31-27. So when he needs to turn it on, he's more than just the old Tom Brady. He's pretty close to the Tom Brady of old.
Yeah, those second half stats for last week are entire game stats for many quarterbacks in the NFL, and that is why he is one of the greats. I thought it was interesting today, or this week, one of the reporters in one of our virtual press conferences asked, I believe it was Duron Harmon, what he saw from this Bucs offense, and if he saw it was more of Tom Brady's style of play or more of Bruce Arians' style of play. He said that it was a mix of both. What have you gathered from what this Bucs offense has put out there this season?
Well, I would agree with that, with the offense. And look, he's got that no biscuit, no whatever he call it, no risk it, no biscuit. That's a nice catchword, but I think what they've done is modified the offense, and I think they've gotten closer, like any team should do, to what your quarterback can do. And if you looked at last week's game, Tori, to me, and I didn't watch the whole thing, I didn't study it any great depth, but you could see, talking to the people who covered it, that they got the ball out of Brady's hands quicker. In other words, he's not the most, and never has been, the most fleet of foot quarterback. But if you get him back to let him pat the ball, he'll kill you. And if he just gets out of his hands quickly, he'll kill you. So he can do it a couple of different ways. And I think you saw a mixture of both. And both getting the ball out to his receivers so they could catch it and do something after the catch. And then, when the money was on the line, 46-yard touchdown pass to Antonio Brown with about 6 minutes to go to win it. And that's Antonio Brown, of course, is his first touchdown catch of the year. But it just goes to show you that at the moment, Tom Brady has been the master of the moment since he came into the National Football League, became a full-time starter in his first season and led the Patriots to the Super Bowl and a Super Bowl championship. And he can still do it now. There's a lot of football to be left to get into the playoffs and all that. And they'll be playing good teams every week. But as he stands right now, I think Tom Brady gives the Bucs a pretty good chance to go the distance.
Well, it isn't just Tom Brady. It's also a lot of the weapons that he has on offense. You guys are seeing a few of them there. Cameron Brate and Mike Evans chatting with each other. Rob Gronkowski there, number 87, hanging out with them as well. Here's a look at some of the wide receiver statistics from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Pretty equal on receptions between Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. 779 yards from Mike Evans this season. Both of those guys averaging over 11 yards a catch. 11 touchdowns, though, from Mike Evans. How much of a threat is are the weapons that Tom Brady has to throw to?
Well, they absolutely are. And if you take them individually, you look at your stats and say, well, that's no big deal. But you have to add them all together.
Right.
It's a cumulative effort. It's not just one guy. It's an ensemble of threats. They've got 3 number 1 receivers and 2 number 1 tight ends. Now, you look at Gronkowski and you just look at his stats, 40-some catches, and say, well, what's so great about that? But he's there when you need him, and that's in the red zone. That's in short yardage. I mean, he's still at times a dominating force on the field, Tori, and that's what they got him for. And maybe we thought that he was going to line up and play, 80% of the snaps. And no, you'd be wasting. You want him where you have him right now, in a defined role during the season, and then in the playoffs, and try to go the distance. And he's still, on any given play, he can beat you, and that given play is when Tom Brady sees Gronkowski. But you look at the other ones, Mike Evans, and I'm reading my notes here, he's got 57 catches. That's not so great. 11 touchdowns, okay. But you go to Antonio Brown now, he's really starting to come on in the last couple of weeks. Godwin, there's another guy, he's got more than 600 yards receiving and touchdowns. So you take all of these guys and you add them together, and you get massive production from
right.
them. Brady said that in his post-game press conference after last week's win against Atlanta. He said, look, there's only one football. I can't split it in 3 or 4 pieces. Just do your job and I'll get the ball to you. And those guys, now that they can see the finish line and what's at stake and what lies ahead for them, a possible Super Bowl, that kind of stuff is not old hat for the likes of Mike Evans and so on. But it is for Tom Brady. It is for Gronkowski. They know what gets you to the finish, and that's why these players, I think, are accepting their roles. The one guy I forgot, by the way, was Leonard Fournette, the running back.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about next, because they don't just have a passing game, they've got a run game too.
But, look, when they needed him last week, he scored 2 touchdowns. Look, he's not going to rip you off for 1,500 yards anymore. But once again, he's sort of like Gronkowski. When you need him, you have that weapon right there in your backfield. Hand off to him, let him get big, tough yardage like he did in the second half last week.
Well, there's a look at Leonard Fournette's stats this season. 83 carries for 320 yards. Those 5 touchdowns have been important to the Tampa Bay Bucs as well. So that's just yet another weapon that you've got to look out for on this Tampa Bay Bucs offense. But I do want to flip over and talk about the Tampa Bay Bucs defense, especially because there's a familiar face that is making a return to Ford Field in Ndamukong Suh. Tim talked about it a little bit earlier on the show and just how good this Tampa Bay Bucs defensive front has been at getting after the quarterback. You're seeing a look at Suh's stats this season. Just 5 sacks, but 16 quarterback hits, and those can often be just as impactful as the sacks.
Well, when Ndamukong Suh, look, we've watched him play. I remember when he came to the Detroit Lions, drafted 2nd overall out of Nebraska in 2010. This was a special player. 4 Pro Bowls in his first 5 games, first team All-Pro 3 times in his first 5 years. And really, I thought he was headed for the Hall of Fame. Ever since he signed with Miami, and for whatever reason, his career in terms of stats that will get you to the Hall of Fame have kind of settled out on him a little bit. Like I said, 5 sacks this year, that's not what we saw from him as a young player and a maturing player here in Detroit. But once again, on a given play and a given day, he can create havoc in there. I've said this before, Tori, and I really believe this. Ndamukong Suh is as indestructible, or as close to indestructible, as any interior lineman I've ever seen in the National Football League. He's missed 2 games his entire career, and this is his 11th season. And both of those, I think, were in season 2 for stomping a player right here out here at Ford Field, and he got suspended for 2 games. But he practices every day. He practices hard every day. And he's not quite playing the snap count that he did before, but he's still up there in the 74 to 76% average snaps per game per year, and he does it from week 1 through week 17 and into the playoffs if need be. So a tremendous force out there. I really, honestly, loved watching him play here in Detroit. I miss watching him every Sunday, but give the man his due, a tremendous football player.
Yeah, I mean, certainly a big threat for the Detroit Lions offensive line, considering they are missing Frank Ragnow there at the center spot. You look at those stats from the Bucs defense, 43 sacks. Of course, Ndamukong Suh, a big part of that as well. Mike, I know you got a guy at linebacker for the Bucs that has really stuck out to you as well. Who else do the Lions need to look out for today?
Well, there are a lot of guys in there like Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barnett and all that, but Shaq Barrett, I'm sorry. But Devin White was a player in the draft 3-4 years ago that I really looked at would be just a great fit for the Detroit Lions. But he was gone before they picked. And look, he's got 8.5 sacks, and he really, to me, and there have been other players who came along like Devin Bush, a kid from Michigan in the same draft. But Devin White, a little bigger, a little bit of everything more than Devin Bush. Look, I'm not knocking Bush. I love the guy, but Devin White to me is the 20th century linebacker. You play with speed, you play with power, you play with quickness, you play with versatility. I just think the days of the linebacker who's just a space eater, like we used to call them. I think those days, they may not be gone, but those are specialists. But you want a guy who can play every down for you. Devin White, to me, is the prototype of that kind of linebacker. Just a tremendous football player, all the athletic ability in the world, and just fits that role.
Well, convenient that you were talking about him as he was addressing the team with a pregame speech. Mike, we appreciate you weighing in on the opponent, but we'll be back in just a couple minutes with your keys to the game. Don't go away.
These past few months have been trying, but despite the setbacks, uncertainty, and challenges, one thing is certain: Michigan will recover, and Comerica is here to help our communities rise. Through our COVID-19 relief program, Comerica has donated millions to COVID-19 testing, personal protection equipment, crucial supplies, food banks, and small businesses, and we're just getting started. To learn more, visit comerica.com/rise.
As a Marine, I learned resiliency. But when I lost my job, my home, and was living out of my car, I felt like a shadow of that person. Now, I'm working to end veteran homelessness. Nearly 40,000 veterans struggle like I did. But with the help of Rocket Mortgage and Built for Zero, my community has ended veteran homelessness. Yours can too. Join us. Visit ahomeforeveryvet.org to get involved.
Welcome back into the Detroit Lions pregame show presented by the Comerica Bank Rise program. I'm Tori Petry. That's Mike O'Hara down at the Henry Ford Health System update desk. Mike, we got to talk keys to the game. What are the key things the Lions need to do to get the win over the Bucs?
Well, Tori, I'll keep it quick. I crumpled them up last week, and now I can't read them. So anyway, to me, number one, get to Brady, but it's hard to do. They've only given up, 19 sacks this year. And look, there's a reason you protect Tom Brady, because he'll get the ball to his receivers, he'll run the offense, and it'll take it to the postseason and perhaps to the Super Bowl. Number two, no secret here, protect Matthew Stafford, the Detroit Lions, facing a team that's got it's not just the 43 sacks, but the fact that they spread around on that entire defense. And you know what they got to do this week, and forget all the other stuff, overcome. Look, it's a tough week for the Detroit Lions. We've talked about the issues of the coaching staff not being here, Darrell Bevel and 4 of his assistants. Guys, find a way, somehow, some way, find a way. I know the betting line is skyrocketing against the Detroit Lions. People think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to have a walkover. If they do, they do. But just play football, play 60 minutes. I've preached this all year, and do it again. Well,
there you have it. Simple plan to follow to win if you follow Mike O'Hara's advice. Mike, thank you so much for being on the pregame show with us.
Okay, Tori, thanks for having me.
Well, guys, this year more than ever, teachers deserve our thanks. So this season, we partnered with Campbell's Chunky to honor Michigan teachers and thank them for their dedication to students. Last week, we had the chance to talk with our champion of the game, Kristen Pumford, and hear about her teaching experience. Take a look. This week, our champion of the game, fueled by Campbell's Chunky, is Kristen Pumford. Thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on being our champion of the game.
Thank you for having me. It's very exciting.
Well, first and foremost, we want to get to know you and your teaching career. So how did you get into teaching?
I started teaching back in 2007 and just really wanted to work with kids. I grew up playing sports, kind of wanted to coach, and so decided that teaching and coaching went hand in hand, and I wanted to work with the kids.
Tell us how you got into your current role and what you do there.
I really wanted to work one-on-one with students rather than just a big ginormous class, which is, what we kind of have nowadays. So went back, got my special ed endorsement, and then just kind of have been in that role since. And I really just enjoy working with the kids one-on-one and getting to know them and their families.
So you work in the Learning Resource Center at Walled Lake High School. Help us understand what exactly that is and what your responsibilities are.
Yep, so my students actually attend a normal high school day, and they go to 6 classes, and they see me for 1 hour of the day where I help them with just different academic tasks that they have, whether it be something with reading, writing, math, just anything that they need. I'm kind of their go-to person in the building.
You were nominated by a parent who appreciates so much of what you do for her kid. What does it mean to be able to get that feedback and hear from parents whose kids' lives are really changed by the work that you're doing?
That's kind of one of the beautiful things about my job is that when I get a student, I get them as a freshman, and I see them all the way through till they graduate. It's just really nice feedback that community that I am helping create in my classroom and outside of the classroom. It's great feedback, and they can feel that love that I want them to feel as I work with them and the parents.
What fulfills you about being in this kind of role?
It's just that relationship that I get to build with not only the student, but the family and the parents. I learn a lot from my kids and their families, just as like they say they learn from me, it goes both ways.
What is it like for you to watch a student begin to thrive after you've worked with them for a little bit?
It's one of the best feelings ever. You really see it, like I said, when I get them as freshmen, they're these young kids who are timid and scared when they come into a big high school. And by the time they're juniors and seniors, just to see them thriving and taking initiatives in their academics and just growing and just become young adults that you're preparing them for the world. And so it's a pretty cool experience to get to see that.
What does it mean to you to be selected as the champion of the game fueled by Campbell's Chunky for this week's Lions game?
I mean, it's pretty awesome. So I grew up going to the Lions games. My dad had season tickets, and so I grew up going all the time. And so it is pretty awesome to be able to be a part of the organization today and just, be recognized for the hard work that all teachers are doing.
Kristen, thank you so much for everything that you do for your students. It is our honor to honor you this week.
Thank you so much.
We'd like to take this time once again to thank the Comerica Rise program for being the presenting partner of today's Detroit Lions pregame show. Make sure you tune into the home of the Detroit Lions after the game on the radio, WJR AM 760. You'll get all the latest info from the game, plus hear from our interim head coach, plus many of your favorite players as well. That's the Lions postgame show on WJR AM 760, the radio home of the Detroit Lions. And all morning, fans have been submitting photos showcasing their game day energy using the hashtag DTE GameFace. You can see fans from all over ready and set for today's game. Thanks again to all of our fans who are part of today's DTE Game Phase.
I just want to make sure everyone saw my cat there on the pregame show. So let's get to our fantasy picks here on pregame. Anthony, who are you taking at quarterback?
Quarterback Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills, because nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. 38 total touchdowns. Love that guy.
I'm going Lamar Jackson. How about wide receiver, Anthony?
Wide receiver, I'm going to go out to Devontae Adams of the Green Bay Packers. Big game for him today or tomorrow against Tennessee.
I'm taking an opponent, a divisional opponent as well, with Allen Robinson at Jacksonville. What about running back?
I see your Allen Robinson, and I'll raise you David Montgomery, Bears running back.
All right, very fair. And I see that, and I raise you Aaron Jones. So we kind of went flip-flop there on teams for wide receiver and running back. But we got to pick our lion here this week. Who's it going to be?
TJ Hockenson, the tight end. Going to be a big game for Hawk today.
I am going with Marvin Jones Jr. He's been Mr. Consistent this season. Anthony, thank you so much for chiming in with your fantasy picks. Let's go to our starting lineups presented by Ford. Your offensive line, Taylor Decker, Jonah Jackson, Joe Dahl, Ode Abushi, and Halapulavati Vaitai. Now at the backs and receiver spots, Mohamed Sanu, TJ Hockenson, DeAndre Swift, Danny Amendola, and Marvin Jones Jr. And of course, at quarterback, that's going to be number 9, Matthew Stafford. Guys, thanks so much for joining us here on the Detroit Lions pregame show presented by the Comerica Bank Rise program. Don't forget to join us for the postgame show after the game, and we've got one more pregame show for you next week, and we'll see you then.